Ever feel like the more powerful your tools get, the bigger the surprise when the bill arrives?
Oh, definitely.
That's a real risk with things like Azure Synapse and now Microsoft Fabric. I mean, they offer incredible analytical power.
That's absolutely phenomenal power.
But without really careful management, those costs can just, well, balloon faster than you'd think.
It's a classic trade-off, isn't it? You want that potential. That speed Fabric gives you unifying, warehousing, Spark, BI, all on Synapse's foundation. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But that agility, that flexibility, it means costs can get away from you if you're not, watching closely.
Right. So in this deep dive, that's our focus. How can you actually get a handle on those Synapse and Fabric costs, but without, crippling your analytics teams?
Exactly. You need the insights, but responsibly.
So we'll break down where the money's going
All right.
and look at practical strategies, governance, tuning, the whole lot.
The goal is really to empower you, the listener, to be informed, stay in control, and get the most value without breaking the bank.
Okay, so where do we start? If you want to get a grip on costs, what's the first thing to understand?
Well, the sources we looked at are pretty clear on this. Compute is usually king. That's typically the biggest chunk of your Azure bill in this area.
Compute is king.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's dig into that. What does that practically mean for someone using, say, Synapse?
Okay, think about dedicated SQL pools first. They're billed per hour. Simple enough, right? But the key thing is, you're charged whether it's actively crunching numbers or just sitting there online but idle.
So idle time costs real money.
Significant money, potentially. Those hours add up fast.
Yeah.
Then you've got serverless SQL. That's different.
How so?
Its cost is based purely on the amount of data your queries scan. So if you write an inefficient query, maybe one that reads way more data than it needs to.
Your cost goes up directly.
Exactly. More data scanned, higher bill. Simple as that.
Okay, so efficiency matters a lot there.
Yeah.
And Spark pools, how do they fit in?
Spark pools are billed using vCore hours.
vCore hours, right.
So that calculation involves the size of your Spark cluster, how many virtual cores, and how long it runs.
Got it.
If your Spark jobs aren't tuned well, run longer than needed. Or if you've just guessed too high on the cluster size.
More vCore hours, higher cost.
Precisely. And, beyond those big three, there are other things. Power BI capacities cost money, data factory pipelines, how often they run, how complex they are.
Right.
Even storage in OneLake adds up. And don't forget networking, especially if you're moving data between regions. It all contributes.
Wow, okay. It sounds like there are quite a few places costs can creep in. But the material suggests a clear strategy, a two-pronged approach.
That's right. It boils down to two main things, governance and tuning.
Governance and tuning, okay.
Governance is like setting up the financial guardrails, the
Right.
rules, the controls, preventing overspending before it happens.
So active them.
Exactly. And tuning is about optimizing what you're actually running, making your workloads, your configurations as efficient as possible to minimize waste within those guardrails.
Makes perfect sense. Let's start with governance, those guardrails. What are some, immediate actions people can take?
A really foundational piece is using Azure Cost Management. Set budgets for Synapse, for Fabric, set up alerts.
So you get notified if things are going off track.
Yeah, it's your early warning system, hugely important. Another basic but crucial thing is resource tagging.
Tagging, just labeling things.
Seems simple, but yeah, consistently tag everything. Which team owns it,
Yeah.
which project, what workload. It gives you visibility, makes accountability possible.
Okay, so good housekeeping really does pay off in transparency. What else falls under governance?
Well, role-based access control, RBAC, carefully controlling who can actually spin up or scale the really expensive compute resources.
Limiting the potential for accidental big spending.
Precisely. And for those dedicated SQL pools we mentioned, set up automated pausing. If they're not being used at night or on weekends, shut them down automatically. Tackle that idle cost head on.
Smart, practical.
And finally, choosing the right Microsoft Fabric capacity tier. Don't just pick the biggest one, make sure it actually matches what you need. Over-provisioning is just wasted money.
Okay, those are some solid preventative measures. Now what about the other side? Tuning. How do we actively minimize the waste?
Right. This is where efficiency really comes into play. For dedicated SQL pools, it's about right-sizing your data warehouse units' DWUs, match them to your actual workload. Don't overpay.
find that sweet spot.
Exactly. And for both serverless and dedicated SQL, optimizing the queries themselves, anything you can do to reduce the amount of data scanned pays off directly, especially with serverless.
And storage formats, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Using efficient formats like Parquet or Delta Lake and OneLake, they're columnar,
Which means
which means queries often only need to read specific columns, not the whole row. Add compression, and you drastically cut down the data volume for processing and storage. It's a win-win.
so smarter storage saves compute costs downstream.
Absolutely. Same logic applies elsewhere. Smart data partitioning helps Spark and serverless only scan the data chunks they actually need.
Target the right data.
Yes. And writing efficient Spark code itself. Avoiding unnecessary data shuffles. Optimizing transformations that minimizes runtime.
Makes sense.
Plus, using auto-scaling for Spark clusters. Let them size up and down automatically based on load. Why pay for idle cores?
Right, elasticity.
Materialized views can help too, pre-calculating results for common expensive queries, and just streamlining data factory pipelines. Avoid unnecessary runs, overlaps, optimize that orchestration.
It really sounds like a continuous process, reviewing, optimizing. How do you actually track if all this tuning and governance is working?
That's where monitoring comes in. It's absolutely essential. You need to use tools like Azure Monitor, Log Analytics, and the Fabric Monitoring Hub.
What do they give you?
Real-time visibility, performance metrics, who's using what resources, how much things are costing. You need to look at this regularly, identify trends, see what's working, what's not.
So it's not set it and forget it. It's iterative.
Definitely not. You have to keep reviewing and adjusting based on that data.
This gives us a really solid technical picture. If we were to boil it down, what's the sort of key takeaway for someone listening who really wants to nail cost effectiveness with Synapse and Fabric?
I think the core message is these platforms, Synapse and Fabric, they offer incredible power, but you have to be proactive about managing the costs to actually realize their full value.
It's not automatic.
No, it's about understanding where the costs come from first, and then deliberately applying that mix of, preventative governance and ongoing tuning.
Optimize deliberately, govern consistently, scale responsibly. That sounds about right.
That sums it up well.
Okay. Well, if you're listening and you want to dive even deeper into specific tactics, we definitely recommend exploring the source material behind this discussion. Thanks for tuning into this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And remember our final thought. Build boldly, but budget wisely.